Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. It's the aftermath, and it's a bloody aftermath today. 38-3, the Patriots lose on the road at AT&T Stadium. No Phil Perry today. We will have him back, I'm sure, later in the week. Everything's fine. But everything's not fine with the Patriots. You know, I said this in the post game, and I said it on Twitter, but I'm going to say it to you folks now who might not have tuned into either one. A loss this decisive, this definitive, brings a certain amount of clarity to a situation and disabuses people like me who have been insistent that the Patriots are this close and just maybe a victim of some preventable mistakes that they are inflicting upon themselves. It kills that. It decapitates that narrative. It murders it. And what it actually does is brings into full relief just how inept they have been and for how long. And to lose 38-3 in the fashion that they did, we're going to break that down. But before we do that, I want to give you an indicator of why I said enough with the making excuses. Going back to right after Thanksgiving, when the Patriots played a very competitive game with the Minnesota Vikings, this is what has happened in 9 of the 10 games since. They fell behind the Bills 17-7 in a game they eventually bailed and kind of quit. The next week, they went to Arizona. They were trailing the Cardinals and Colt McCoy 13-7 at one point. Then they went to the Raiders after the Cardinals' narrow win, and they fell down 17-3 after the embarrassing way that game ended, which should bring everybody into a come-to-Jesus mode where they're never going to let that happen again. They fall behind the Bengals 22-0. The next week, no Tua, but you have Skylar Thompson and Teddy Bridgewater, so you're going to be fine. No, by the third quarter, they're down 14-7 to the Dolphins. Season finale, they fall behind 7-0 before most people had even finished getting to their seats. New year, new team, new offensive coordinator, new changes for the Patriots. They're going to be on their details. They're going to be on their quality control. They're going to be like a Bill Belichick team would be. They fall behind the Eagles 16-0. Then they fall behind the Miami Dolphins 17-3. Then they fall behind today against the Dallas Cowboys 28-3 by halftime. They lose 38-3. So no comeback forthcoming like there was against the Cardinals or the Raiders or the Bengals or the Dolphins or in the Bills finale or the Eagles or Miami. This time they couldn't get out of the hole that they dug. Why couldn't they do that? Because they kept making mistakes. And Mac Jones had his worst game as an NFL quarterback. Now look at some of the things that went into this if you go chronologically. And we're going to get into the big picture in a second, but chronologically, the Patriots allowed an opening drive field goal. That's going to happen out there. But when the Patriots, who are on the road against a talented team, who's a playoff team, who is year in and year out among the better teams in the NFL, and the Patriots aren't that, when the Patriots have 3rd and 1 at the 6, they throw to the end zone, and then they say, let's try a field goal. They don't play with the kind of aggressiveness necessary to upset a team on the road. That's what this amounted to. You're trying to upset a team. You're not trying to get into a rope-a-dope with them. You know why? Because you've only scored more than 3 touchdowns once in the last calendar year. You can only get to 21 points with your offense. That's your max output, folks. That's what they've done. The Eagles, they scored 3 touchdowns. The finale against the Bills, they scored 3 touchdowns. And then way back against Cleveland, they had 5 touchdowns. And I think that age is out now, the Cleveland game. I think it's been more than a year now. It's 18 games if you want to include the Cleveland game. 17. The last 17 games, they've scored more than 3 touchdowns twice. So they didn't show aggressiveness there on that 3rd and 1. Then they lose their corner, Christian Gonzalez. Immediate touchdown to CeeDee Lamb. In part, not just because Miles Bryant was a little overmatched, because he wasn't ready for the friggin' snap. Look at the replay. Kind of looking around. Ball snapped. Miles Bryant does that, and CeeDee Lamb's in the end zone. So the Patriots get the ball, right? And what the hell? It's 10-3. You're up against it a little bit, but it's 10-3. It's early in the second quarter. So how are things going to go with a team that has to get it right on the road? Well, get a first down, get another. And then, predictably, in 3rd and 10, Mike Onwenu gets a false start. Now, he could have reacted to the Dallas Cowboy who flinched and kind of went into the neutral zone, it seemed, reacted in time and had that go on Dallas, but he didn't. So now it's 3rd and 15 instead of 3rd and 10. And the throw to Juju Smith-Schuster shows up just a smidge late, smidge short of the sticks, I should say. So it's 4th and 1. And what do the Patriots try? They try a tush push with Mac Jones. And he's not a big enough and strong enough player to do that with. Just as Bill Belichick said last year, he didn't think that Mac Jones could reach the end zone for a Hail Mary. But he definitely isn't going to plow through the Dallas Cowboys, Jonathan Hankins, and everybody else for a first down. It was a stupid idea. Stupid idea. Now, maybe if you had a third down back or a slot receiver who could elude people the way it used to happen, then you could run something different. But instead, you had Tom Brady, which you don't. Never mind. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that anymore. So now you fail on 4th and 1. It's 10-3. Defense bows up. They make a stop. But then again, mistakes happen real quick. 1st and 10 at their 10 after that stop. And it's still 10-3. And instead, there's another Mike Onwenu false start. Now it's 1st and 15. You're behind the sticks. By the time it gets to 2nd and 12, you're still kind of panicky because it's not 2nd and 7. You got to make a play. You got to get, it's 10-3. You got to do, Matt gets strip sacked. And there's your touchdown. So you got your penalties and you got your turnovers and you got your bad luck with an injury to Christian Gonzalez. And now the horse is out of the barn and it's 18-3 because your vaunted special teams allow a 2-point conversion as somebody gets to waltz in naked and alone for that reception. Then after that, honestly, I thought that Mac Jones kind of checked out. Now, you can look at plays in which there was good effort given, but anybody with a working knowledge of the NFL knows that you don't throw across the field unless your name's Justin Herbert or John Elway. Anyone with a working knowledge of throws in general, gravity even, or velocity. I don't know what the scientific V equals MC squared, or F equals MA, that's force, mass times acceleration. Whatever it is for velocity, Mac doesn't friggin' have it, okay? His arm doesn't move fast enough against that particular object to throw it with enough velocity to throw it across the field and elude people. So his pass get picked, returned for a touchdown. That would again happen later in the game as well, at the start of the second half on a 4th and 2 to end the first drive. Mac sealed his fate with an incompletion in the general direction towards the end of the 3rd quarter, early in the 4th, to Juju Smith-Schuster, 1 minute and 4 seconds left. And that was just an awful effort. A get me out of here kind of throw. And that's one thing about Mac Jones that I haven't seen. I think he's tough physically. I think he has shown resilience as a player in terms of dealing with, as long as he did, the coaching situation that he had last year. He showed mental toughness as a rookie by the things he was able to accomplish to get to being a starter for the Patriots, despite somewhat limited skills. Showed a lot of toughness to get to that point. But today, or Sunday, depending upon when you're listening to this, I thought he kind of bailed on the game. What's the use? He went Eeyore. It's not going to work. Get me out of here. Now, we talked to Andrew Callahan from the Herald on the postgame show. And Andrew said, I can't blame him. I get what he's saying. There's plenty of times I talked about, look, Mac was given a sandwich, no bread last year when he had to deal with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge as his offensive coaching staff. Who can blame him for striking out? Yep. I was okay with that, but I'm not okay with bailing on plays, because if you think you're going to recoup the locker room and recoup the respect of the guys around you who are blocking for you when you throw backpedaling throws to general areas and zip codes in your 3rd year in the league, it's not going to work. Especially, you got to go out after you've played the way you did for the first however many drives. You've already had 2 picks and a strip sack. You have to play 3 times harder to try and recoup the respect of your teammates. In my estimation, haven't played a lot of NFL football, but I followed a lot of it and I've covered a lot of really good players. And I'll tell you, I don't think Matt Castle would have done that. No, we'll have Matt on later this week. Promise. And I'm going to ask him if he thought that Matt quit. And I guarantee you, because of that stupid quarterback fraternity stuff, he's going to say, no. But he did. Some of those throws were get me out of here type throws. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Bill Belichick walked over to Mac and said, party's over now. Okay, we're putting Bailey in. Now here's Bill in the post game talking about Mac Jones and whether or not he'll be back out there. Excellent interrogation by my guy, Mike Reese. And Bill, you could tell by his facial expression, didn't appreciate being challenged about Mac Jones and whether or not Bill should have replaced everybody at that point. How come Matt Judon was still out there? Bill had no answer because Mac didn't get benched because there was no one else he could put out there, or there was only so many bodies, or whatever Bill's going to say. He got benched because Bill was sick of watching it. Here's Bill talking Mac talk.
Bill, what led to the decision to take Mac out with 3:41 remaining in the third quarter?
Yeah, I think there was any point leaving him in the game.
And will he be starting next week against the Saints?
Yeah, just so there's no point leaving him in the game, Mike.
In that sense, I mean, do you consider taking
No.
Judon out on the other side, or at that point?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got to put somebody out there.
So, Bill, was he benched for bad performance, or was he pulled because?
No, I said there was no point in leaving him out there, so I took him out.
That's just a perfect question by Mike Reese. What was the point of having Mac out there if the game was out of hand? What was the point of having any of your starters out there, Judon included? You got plenty of defensive ends. If you're getting Mac Jones out of the game because it's out of reach, well, why was it after that throw? Why wasn't it earlier? And you know what? You want a quarterback who's going to fight you to stay in the game at that juncture. But I think that this relationship, if we can be really blunt about it, is so soured that Mac's not going to push back. Which I get why he shouldn't. I mean, last year was the no pushback year. The relationship is so chilled, not chill as in relaxed. It's so chilled that you can't have an honest conversation on the sidelines like Bill Parcells and Phil Simms would have back in the 80s. I'm dating myself a little bit here, but they'd flip out on each other. Ditka and Harbaugh, Brady and O'Brien. Look, people don't push back on Bill right now because he is who he is and he's got the resume he does. But I feel like I am not going to absolve Mac Jones for blaming this. But I do think that he's going to be scapegoated a little bit by Bill, even though Bill sits there and says, yeah, it wasn't for performance. He had to be sick to his stomach watching Mac Jones perform that way. And he got benched for performance. Now, was it similar to the way Tom Brady was benched for performance against the Kansas City Chiefs, or benched not for performance, but for what's the point of keeping him out there against the Kansas City Chiefs in 2014? I don't know. But it led to the same kind of questions that night as Mike Giardi and I both peppered Bill with questions about where things would go with the quarterback position. I asked about the performance, and Bill asked whether or not he'd look at the starting situation. Excuse me, Mike asked that. He's the one who got the ugly look. So I divvied them up right. I asked the good one, and Mike got the shitty one that lasts forever. But these questions would have more merit if the Patriots had actually staffed their quarterback room with players who were worthy of challenging. Tom Brady was the greatest quarterback of all time. You had to be absolutely delusional if you didn't think problems in 2013 and 14 were related directly to the horrendous roster decisions the Patriots had made on offense back then. When you have Aaron Dobson cruising around, and you moved on from Wes Welker because you didn't want to pay him, and Danny Amendola was injured, and everything fell on Julian Edelman, but you had Aaron Dobson, Taylor Price, and, a cast of not very goods. But that was supposed to be Brady's fault to an extent in 2013 and then into 2014, playing behind Jordan Devy. But they had a realistic backup in Jimmy Garoppolo where we could actually have a conversation. The notion that Mac Jones could be benched now is absurd because the Patriots don't have a backup quarterback of NFL ilk in their building. I don't care what Bailey Zappi did last year. That was hands at 10-2, carried by the defense. Yep, I know he threw for 300, for 24, for 28 in one of those games, but the Patriots were so far ahead in one of those games that it made very little difference. They went against Jacoby Brissett, and then Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, and the Lions decided to go on every fourth down and got stuffed every time. So the Patriots profited from great field position. What we saw from Bailey Zappi against the Bears was Bailey Zappi when he falls behind. It's not going to be good. And what we saw from Bailey Zappi in training camp is what Bailey Zappi is. A competitive grinder who you're going to want in for just a few snaps, maybe a few drives, but you're not going to want to rely on him. Mac Jones is going to have to be back out on the field. As Bill Belichick did say eventually during his press conference, where he got pissed off at the media for having the temerity to ask questions of him after a loss, that was desperately embarrassing. Act like we're all getting out of our lanes for wondering why the team looks so desperately poor. And this is, to me, what's interesting. Here's Bill Belichick's answer when asked why he had faith the team would rebound a little bit.
Bill, why do you believe you're a better team than 1-3 that just lost by 35?
Yeah, I said we're better than we were today.
Why do you believe that?
Just the last 3 games we played.
So listen, here's the thing about what Bill does. He does get defensive. He does gild the lily. He does, we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years especially, reframe questions and doctor things in reality so that it looks better than it really is. I remember I asked him about second-round picks being desperately bad a few years ago, and he paused for a long time on a Zoom call and said, I don't think Matt Light was a bad second-round pick or Rob Gronkowski. So that question was posed to him, I think, in 2021. That would have been exactly 20 years since the drafting of Matt Light and 11 years since the drafting of Rob Gronkowski. So effectively saying, well, okay, we have a guy here who doesn't understand Patriots history with Matt Light and Rob Gronkowski. Bill, you're putting lipstick on a pig. You're putting whipped cream on a turd. The reality is, in that instance, was that she had face planted continuously when the 2020 team was going south. And Bill said, it's a reset this year. You guys didn't know that? Told Charlie Weiss, yeah, it's kind of a reset year. I had a coach on the staff say to me, why didn't I know it was a reset year? I would be sitting here until 2 or 3 in the morning every night trying to get things right. Let me know if it's a reset year, because I didn't know that. So we look at this Patriots team now, and when Bill says we're good because of the first 3 games, which, raising hand, I agreed with, because I'm stupid enough to believe that they're going to start playing like the team that I remember, and that Bill's ability to get his team's attention and his coaches to coach in a way that will make sure that his players perform with some discipline. I believed in it. I believed it would resurrect itself. But instead, the 16-0 deficit came as a result of penalties and turnovers. The deficit and their failure to come back against the Miami Dolphins was penalties and turnovers and a bust on defense when Raheem Mostert ran for 43 yards. And you had a game against the Jets that was way closer than it needed to be because you went into a second half funk that was directly attributable to a spate of penalties. Is it the players? And I usually start with the players with penalties because no coach is saying don't do that. Or is it the coaches? I guess the penalties and the situational stupidity and throwing it backwards over your head like Ramondre Stevenson did last year, or fumbling like Ramondre Stevenson did last year, or jumping off sides like Mike Onwenu did, or lining up off sides like Dietrich Wise did, or crackback blocking like Juju Smith-Schuster did, just in the recent past. I guess those mistakes when Tom Brady was here, or players would hold themselves and each other to standards which were so high, you didn't want to let them down. That's kind of disappeared. I don't know if players are not afraid of Bill, unless you're a rookie like Demario Douglas or Kayshon Boutte, and you know that you're going to have to pay with some consequences. I mean, what are the consequences? I mean, the only guys who get consequences here, I mean, I guess, are Jacoby Myers. Just don't be a guy who catches a whole shit ton of passes for a couple of years and then maybe gets sideways with the team. Doesn't think that the offense plan was really that good. That'll learn you. That'll get the bad guys out. That'll get the bad play out of the system. Let him sign someplace else. We'll get a guy in here in Juju, who now we can almost without reservation now call a horrible idea. Trying his best, but if Jacoby Myers was still here for the same rate of pay, things would be going a little bit better for the offense. But you look at that. I mean, what is the fallout for guys who make mistakes? I don't see any really, because the mistakes keep happening. And the mistakes keep happening and causing what I'm explaining to you about the team falling behind. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/NSBO and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in Mass. Hope is here. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com, gamblinghelpline.ma.org, or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. So where does this lead us to as the Patriots are 1-3 and entering a stretch where they'll see the Saints? It's leading us into a situation where after a 38-3 loss in the national game, you have to really interrogate, if you're Robert Kraft, exactly what the direction of this team is. Matthew Judon's going to be gone with most likely a biceps tendon tear. They say you can't speculate on injuries, but I don't understand why, as long as it's pretty obvious. And that was pretty obvious. Gonzalez is hurt. Jabril Peppers was injured, but he'll likely be available. He spoke in the post-game. Cole Strange is down. Mike Onwenu's not playing so hot. You still don't have a right tackle. Demario Douglas finally got the ball and got 42 yards. That's the guy who had to be benched a couple of weeks ago. You remember that? The only guy who's able to create after the catch. He's the guy who got penalized for making a mistake when there's mistakes all over the place. So I guess I'm just prattling on with negativity here. But the upshot of this is this reporter's off the bandwagon. That 10-win prediction, that was contingent upon them cutting the. They didn't cut the. What we saw is a team that is refusing to cut the and doubled down on the. Going to have a lot of beeps here because I don't like this going out to the folks in case they get their kids in the car and they're driving to school. Daddy, you said again. All right. Why do we listen to this? It only makes you madder. But they really have to look hard at the direction of the team, because for the things that I cited, to be that ill prepared at the starts of games every single game to be that inept on offense where you can't score more than 3 touchdowns. I mean, literally can't. That's 21 points. If you can only get to 21 points as an offense in 2023, you're not going to win. You're not a playoff team. You're not a good team, which is what I've continued to pretend that they were, because I figured that Bill would wave his magic wand and people would sit at attention and cut the crap. They're not doing it. So I'm out. I'm out on them. Now I will, with great attention and interest, cover and report on whatever it is that happens next. But I'm out on thinking that this is going to improve. This is in their DNA. This is who they are. We've seen it for long enough, and they put an exclamation mark on it today in Dallas. And that sucks, because I was looking forward to a fun year. But now they're at a crossroads, a real crossroads. This is not, it'll get better. This is a crossroads. It's going to start to shape up with, this town ain't big enough for both of them, Bill and Mac. Somebody's to blame for the way things are, or both are. So head coach and quarterback are now under deserved and intense scrutiny, in my estimation, or should be by ownership, as to whether or not they should go forward, and whether or not the entire organization needs to have kind of a reckoning as to whether or not the philosophy and mindset and financial decisions and roster decisions and motivations of Bill Belichick over the last few years have put them into a situation where it's a toxic and dysfunctional team. Because half measures like hiring Bill O'Brien after the disgustingly moronic idea of having 2 people who hadn't coached offense take over for a promising player on his rookie contract, they're just taking a flamethrower to millions and millions and millions of dollars of Robert Kraft's money with the personnel decisions. And they're taking a flamethrower to the interest of fans. Now people are more interested in the team to see what the hell is going to happen next, not to see whether they win or lose. And that's a bad place to be. That's a bad place to be. It's going to be a great week, folks. It's going to be a great week. We're going to have some fun. You know, weather's great. It's going to be a great week of weather. Native American summer out there. It's going to be beautiful. So, for me, for Phil, for the Skull Crusher, thanks for hanging with me. I hope I wasn't too bleak. And sorry about all the bleeps. Goodbye.